They were dying, and there was nothing they could do about it. Ambassador stood at the great window of his ship, watching his home world burn. Orange flames rose from the cities below. Black smoke covered the sky like a dark blanket. Sanctuary Prime, the most peaceful planet in the galaxy, was being destroyed. They had come 3 weeks ago. They came without warning, without mercy. Their ships blocked out the sun. Their soldiers poured down from the sky like a deadly rain. And they who had never known war, who had never held a weapon, could only run and hide and die. Closed his eyes. His body, made of soft light and gentle energy, flickered with colors of deep sadness. They were not like other species. They were beings of thought and peace. They had evolved on a quiet moon with low gravity and calm weather. For 10,000 years they had studied the stars, healed the sick, and shared knowledge with the galaxy. They had no army. They had no weapons. They had believed foolishly that peace would protect them. They were wrong. The door behind opened. His assistant, a young named, entered the room. Her light was dim with fear. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "the High Council is ready for you." Nodded slowly. He took one last look at his burning world, then followed down the long corridor to the council chamber. The High Council of the Galactic Union was made up of 12 species. They sat in a great circular room, each in their own special environment. Some breathed different gases. Some needed different temperatures. Some floated in water or hung from the ceiling. But today they all shared one thing: fear. Walked to the center of the room. He looked at each council member, searching for hope in their eyes. He found none. "Honored members of the council," began, his voice shaking, "you have seen the reports. They have taken 7 of our 12 cities. Our people are dying by the thousands. We have no soldiers, no weapons, no way to fight back." He paused, struggling to control his emotions. "We need help, please. Is there no one in this galaxy who will stand with us?" Silence filled the room. The council members looked at each other, but no one spoke. Finally, a large creature named shifted in his seat. He was from a water world, and his voice bubbled when he talked. "They have our sympathy," he said, "but they are too strong. They have conquered 47 worlds. No army has ever defeated them. To send our soldiers would be to send them to death." "Then we are to die alone?" asked. "Everything we have built, everything we are, will be erased from the universe." Another council member, a tall being with 4 arms named, spoke next. "We wish we could help, Ambassador, but they are monsters. Their bodies are covered in natural armor. Their blood is acid. They feel no pain, no fear, no mercy. They are the perfect killing machines." Felt his light growing dim. Despair was taking over. He had come here hoping for salvation, but he had found only cowardice. Then, from the darkest corner of the room, an old voice spoke. "There is one option." Everyone turned to look. It was Elder, the oldest member of the council. He was from a species that lived for thousands of years, and his body was bent and slow. But his mind was still sharp, and his eyes held secrets that others had long forgotten. Elder said nervously, "What do you mean?" The old being slowly rose from his seat. "There is a species, recently discovered, from a small planet in the outer rim of the galaxy, the 3rd planet from a yellow star." "I have not heard of them," said. "You would not have," Elder replied. "We have kept them secret. We have watched them from a distance, afraid to make contact." Stepped forward. "Why? Why would you fear a species from such a small planet?" Elder turned to face him. His eyes were filled with something he had never seen before. It was not just fear, it was awe. "Because, Ambassador, they are from a—" The room went completely silent. Even the machines that kept the different environments working seemed to grow quiet. Felt his light flicker with confusion. But nothing survives on the gravity is too strong. The weather is too violent. The creatures are too deadly. Only monsters could live in such a place." "Yes," Elder said simply, "only monsters." He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a blue and green planet covered in water and clouds. It looked beautiful. It looked peaceful. But then the images changed. They showed massive storms that could destroy cities, mountains that spit fire, ground that shook and broke apart, oceans filled with creatures that had hundreds of teeth, animals that hunted and killed without mercy. And through it all, walking and running and fighting, were the beings who lived there. Humans. The council watched in horror as the images showed human history, wars that killed millions, diseases that swept across continents, disasters that would have ended any other species. But the humans did not end. They survived. They adapted. They grew stronger. These creatures, elders said, have faced every horror their world could create, and they won. They conquered their planet, they reached for the stars, and now, he paused, they have agreed to help. Agreed? Asked, his voice barely a whisper. You have already contacted them. I took the liberty, Elder said. I knew this day would come. I knew that one day we would need monsters of our own. The hologram changed one final time. It showed human soldiers. They were tall and strong, with hard eyes and harder bodies. They carried weapons that looked terrifying, and they were boarding ships. Ships that were heading toward Sanctuary Prime. They call themselves humans, Elder said, and they are already on their way. Did not know whether to feel hope or terror. They were coming. The monsters were coming to save them. He only prayed they would not regret what they had asked for. The human ships came out of faster-than-light travel, like thunder breaking through silence. Ambassador stood on the landing platform of the last free city on Sanctuary Prime. Behind him, thousands of refugees huddled together, their lights dim with exhaustion and fear. They had been running for weeks. They had nowhere left to run. And now they had arrived. The first ship to land was smaller than expected. It was black and angular, built for war, not beauty. Steam hissed from its sides as it touched the ground. The around moved back, their fear rising like a wave. A ramp lowered from the ship. Heavy footsteps echoed on the metal. Then the humans appeared. The first one was a male. He was almost 2 meters tall, wrapped in black armor that covered his entire body. His face was hidden behind a dark helmet. He moved with a smoothness that seemed impossible for a creature of his size. Every step was controlled. Every movement had purpose. Behind him came 3 more. One was massive, with shoulders as wide as 2 standing together. Another was smaller, female, with equipment bags strapped to her back. The last was also female, thin and quick, her head turning constantly as if she was looking for danger in every shadow. Forced himself to step forward. His light flickered with the effort of hiding his fear. "Welcome to Sanctuary Prime," he said, his voice shakier than he wanted. "I am Ambassador. On behalf of the people, I thank you for answering our call." The lead human stopped in front of. For a long moment he just stood there, silent and still. Then he reached up and removed his helmet. Gasped. The human's face was strange. 2 small eyes, brown like tree bark, a nose that stuck out from the center of his face, a mouth that curved upward at the corners. He had short black hair and smooth skin the color of light sand. And he was smiling. "I am Lieutenant," the human said. His voice was deep but not unkind. "This is Echo. We are here to help." The large human removed his helmet next. His face was rounder, with a wide jaw and small eyes that seemed to sparkle with energy. "Sergeant," he said, nodding at heavy weapons. The female with the equipment bag stepped forward. Her face was serious, with sharp eyes and thin lips pressed together. Scars crossed her hands like lines on a map. "Corporal," she said, "combat medic." The last human, the thin, quick one, did not remove her helmet. She simply raised one hand in greeting. "Private," came her voice through the helmet speaker. "Scout." Looked at the 4 humans. They were so small compared to so fragile looking. How could these creatures possibly fight the monsters that had destroyed his world? "You are fewer than I expected," said carefully. Smile grew wider. "We are just the first team, Ambassador, the advance group." He turned and pointed at the sky. "Look up." Looked. His light nearly went out from shock. The sky was filled with ships, dozens of them, hundreds of them. They descended through the clouds like a swarm of black insects, their engines roaring so loud that the ground shook. Dropships and carriers and vessels of war, all bearing the mark of Earth. From the largest ship, a new figure descended on a small transport platform. It was another human female. She was older than the others, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her dark eyes. She wore the same black armor, but her shoulders carried symbols of rank. When she landed on the platform, every human soldier nearby stood. "Captain," said, saluting. "The ambassador was just welcoming us." Captain walked toward. Her steps were slow and measured. Her eyes studied him like he was a puzzle to solve. When she stopped in front of him, felt something he had not felt from the other humans. Power, calm, quiet, absolute power. "Ambassador," said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried weight. "I have read the reports about the armored bodies, acid blood, no fear, no pain. They have conquered many worlds." "Yes," said, his voice small. They are unstoppable. We have tried everything. Nothing works. They are." Ambassador raised one hand and fell silent. "On my world there is a creature called the honey badger. It is small, about the size of your arm. It has no armor, no special weapons. But when it is attacked by lions, by snakes, by creatures 10 times its size, do you know what it does?" Shook his head. "It fights back," said. "It fights back with everything it has, with no thought of surrender until either it wins or it dies. And more often than not, the bigger creature runs away." She leaned closer. Her eyes locked onto us. "They have never met honey badgers, Ambassador. They have never met creatures that refuse to die." She straightened and turned to face her soldiers. Hundreds of humans now stood on the platform. They carried weapons of all sizes. They wore armor of all types, and every single one of them was looking at her, waiting for orders. "We have traveled across the stars to answer your call," said, loud enough for all to hear. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Storms that could level mountains, diseases that could empty cities, predators that hunted us for millions of years. And we survived. We survived because we learned one simple truth." She drew her weapon, a long blade that gleamed in the fading sunlight. "The universe does not care if you live or die. It is cold and empty and cruel, but we are not. We are warm, we are full of fire, and we are here to share that fire with anyone who needs it." She pointed her blade toward the distant lines. "Those creatures think they are the top of the food chain. They think they are the ultimate predators. They think nothing can stop them." Smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally found worthy prey. "They are wrong, and we are going to teach them why." The humans cheered. The sound was loud and fierce, like the roar of animals ready for the hunt. Watched them, his light flickering with a new emotion. It was strange and unfamiliar. It was hope. They had come. The monsters had arrived, and for the first time since the invasion began, believed that maybe, just maybe, his people might survive. He only hoped the cure would not be worse than the disease. Neva was a scholar. She had spent her entire life studying other species, learning their ways, understanding their nature. But nothing in all her years of study had prepared her for the humans. She had been assigned to follow Echo, to watch them and record what she saw. The council wanted to understand these. They wanted to know if they could be trusted. After 1 week with the humans, Neva did not know what to think. On the first day, she watched Sergeant carry supplies to a refugee camp. The boxes weighed more than 3 combined. Carried 4 of them at once, stacked on his shoulders, walking for 5 kilometers through rough ground. When he finally put them down, he was breathing hard, sweat dripping from his face. But he was smiling. "Sergeant," Neva asked carefully, "are you not tired? That weight would crush any of my people." Laughed. It was a loud, warm sound. Tired, yes, very tired. My muscles are screaming at me right now. He wiped his face with a cloth. But those refugees need food. They need medicine. My pain is small compared to their need. Neva did not understand. You feel pain, but you continue anyway. Why? Looked at her with genuine confusion. Because it needs to be done, because I can do it, because if I do not, who will? On the third day, Neva watched Corporal treat a wounded child. The child had been burned by weapons. Her light was fading. She was dying. Worked for 6 hours without stopping. She used tools Neva had never seen. She cut and stitched and injected medicine. Her hands, covered in scars from 100 past battles, moved with impossible precision. When the child's light finally steadied, when her life was no longer in danger, sat back. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She had given everything she had. Corporal, Neva said softly, how did you learn to do this? Your hands, they seemed designed for healing. Looked at her hands. A sad smile crossed her face. These hands have done many things. They have killed, they have destroyed, but that is not what I choose to remember. She looked at the sleeping child. I choose to remember this. The lives I save, the pain I ease, that is what makes the other things bearable. Neva began to understand something. The humans were not just warriors. They were warriors who felt. They were killers who could also heal. They were monsters who chose to protect. On the 5th day, everything changed. Neva was with Lieutenant on a night patrol. They were checking the outer edges of the safe zone, looking for any scouts. The night was quiet, too quiet. The attack came without warning. Warriors rose from the ground where they had been hiding, buried in the dirt like nightmares waiting to wake up. There were 8 of them. Their armored bodies gleamed in the moonlight. Their acid dripped from their claws. Their eyes burned with hunger. Neva froze. Her light went completely dark from terror. She could not move. She could not think. She could only wait to die. But did not freeze. He moved so fast that Neva could barely follow. One moment he was standing beside her. The next, he was among his blade singing through the air. The first fell before it could even attack. His blade found the gap in its armor, the soft space where the head met the neck. The creature collapsed, acid blood spraying across the ground. Did not stop. He kept moving, kept fighting. He ducked under claws that could have cut him in half. He jumped over tails that could have crushed his legs. His blade struck again and again, each hit precise, each cut deadly. They were fast. They were strong. They had killed thousands of warriors across dozens of worlds. But was faster, was stronger, and absolutely refused to die. In less than 2 minutes it was over. 8 lay dead on the ground. Stood in the center of them, breathing hard, his blade dripping with acid blood. He was wounded. A claw had caught his arm, cutting through his armor. Red blood, human blood, dripped down his fingers. But he was alive. Neva finally found her voice. How? She whispered. How did you do that? How did your species survive long enough to reach the stars? Turned to look at her. His eyes were different now. They were older, deeper, filled with something ancient and wild. Our world tried to kill us, he said quietly. Every day for millions of years, something tried to end us. Predators hunted us. Diseases attacked us. The earth shook. The sky burned. The water rose and fell and poisoned itself. He began to clean his blade. His movements calmed despite his wound. But we did not die. We learned. We adapted. We became the thing that everything else feared. We became the predator that other predators ran from. We became the disaster that disasters could not survive. He slid his blade back into its holder and walked toward Neva. Despite everything she had seen, she did not feel afraid of him. She felt safe. The universe thinks our monsters, said, and maybe we are, but we are also protectors, we are also healers, we are also friends. He reached out and gently touched Neva's shoulder. You asked for help, Neva. You called into the darkness, hoping something would answer. Well, something did. We did. and we are not going to let you down." Neva felt her light begin to glow again. For the first time since meeting the humans, she truly understood them. They were not monsters. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were beings who had looked at a universe that wanted them dead and said no, not today, not ever. And now they were here to share that gift with the... As they walked back to camp, Neva made a decision. She would no longer just observe the humans. She would learn from them. She would understand their strength. And maybe, just maybe, she would find some of that strength within herself. Hive General Vex had never known fear. For 300 years, he had led to victory after victory. He had crushed empires. He had silenced entire species. He had watched worlds burn and felt nothing but satisfaction. But now, standing in his command ship above Sanctuary Prime, Vex felt something new, something cold and strange. The humans were winning. It should have been impossible. They were perfect warriors. Their bodies were covered in armor stronger than metal. Their blood was acid that could melt through anything. They felt no pain, no mercy, no doubt. They were designed by nature to kill and conquer. But the humans did not care about any of that. Vex watched the battle reports with growing disbelief. His forces, once unstoppable, were being destroyed. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever faced. They did not form neat lines. They did not attack in predictable waves. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before they could respond. Worse, they adapted. On the first day, the armor had stopped human bullets. By the third day, the humans had new weapons that cut through that armor like paper. On the fifth day, they used acid traps. By the seventh day, the humans wore suits that the acid could not touch. And through it all, the humans kept coming. They took wounds that would have killed other species. They lost friends and kept fighting. They faced impossible odds and laughed. Yes, laughed. Vex had intercepted their communications. The humans talked to each other during battle. They made jokes. They encouraged each other. They treated war not as horror but as challenge. They were enjoying this. Hive General, one of his officers, approached, his voice uncertain. "The humans have begun their final assault. They are heading directly for this ship." Vex turned to face the officer. "How many?" "Our scouts report approximately 200 soldiers. They are led by the one they call Captain." 200, against the thousands of still on the command ship. Any other species would have considered that suicide. But these were not any other species. "Prepare all defenses," Vex ordered. "Every soldier, every weapon, we will crush them here." In the battlefield below, Captain gathered her team for the final push. Lieutenant stood at her right side, his blade ready. Sergeant checked his heavy weapon one more time, making sure every part was perfect. Corporal had her medical kit strapped tight to her back. Private studied the holographic map of the command ship, memorizing every corridor. Around them, 200 human soldiers waited. They were tired. Many were wounded. All of them knew they might not survive the next few hours. But none of them looked afraid. "Soldiers," said, her voice calm and steady, "today we end this. They think they are invincible. They think nothing can stop them. They are wrong." She drew her blade. It was the same blade her grandmother had carried in another war, on another world, a lifetime ago. "My grandmother survived a war that killed millions. My grandfather rebuilt our nation from ashes. My parents raised me to believe that giving up is not an option." She looked at her soldiers, meeting each of their eyes. "We come from a world that tried to break us every single day. It failed. These will fail too." Grinned, "So we just go in there and show them who the real predators are." Smiled, "Exactly." The assault began at midnight. The humans hit the command ship like a storm. They breached the outer hull with explosives that shook the entire vessel. They poured through the holes, weapons firing, blades cutting. They fought back with everything they had, acid sprayed, claws slashed, bodies crashed together in the narrow corridors. But the humans would not stop. Led the advance team, cutting through guards with movements that seemed almost like dancing. Every strike was perfect. Every step was calculated. He was wounded again and again, but he kept moving, kept fighting. Covered the rear, his heavy weapon roaring like an angry beast. Any that tried to attack from behind was cut down before it could take 3 steps. He laughed as he fought, a wild, joyful sound that confused and terrified the enemy. Moved between the soldiers, treating wounds even as the battle raged around her. She pulled soldiers back from the edge of death with quick hands and steady nerves. She saved lives while the battle tried to take them. Scouted ahead, finding the safest paths, spotting ambushes before they could spring. Her warning saved dozens of lives. And through it all pushed forward, always toward Vex. They found the Hive General in the heart of the ship, surrounded by his best warriors. He was massive, 3 times the size of a human, covered in armor thicker than any other. He looked at with something that might have been respect. "You fight well, human," Vex said. "Better than any species I have faced, but it ends here. I have killed generals. I have killed kings. I will kill you." Raised her blade. "You have killed those who were afraid to die. I am not." They charged at each other. The fight was brutal. Vex was stronger, faster, bigger. His claws left deep cuts in his armor. His tail knocked her down again and again. His acid blood sprayed across her suit, burning through the outer layer. But kept getting up. Every time she fell, she rose. Every time he hurt her, she struck back. She was bleeding. She was breaking, but she was not stopping. And slowly, Vex began to understand what he was facing. This was not just a soldier. This was not just a warrior. This was a creature from a world where death waited in every shadow, where survival meant fighting every single day. This was a being who had been forged in fire and blood and pain. This was a... His blade found its mark. It slid through a gap in Vex's armor, deep into his chest. The Hive General stumbled back, shock spreading across his face. "What are you?" he gasped. Pulled her blade free. She was covered in blood, both red and green. She was barely standing, but her eyes were steady and her voice was clear. "I am human," she said. "I am from Earth. I am from a world that tried to kill me every single day." She raised her blade for the final strike. "And I am the reason you are about to die." Her blade fell. Vex, Hive General of the Conqueror of 47 Worlds, fell with it. The command ship fell silent. The remaining, seeing their leader dead, began to retreat. The battle was over. The war was won. Stood over her fallen enemy, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Around her, her soldiers cheered. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the undefeatable. They had proven once again what it meant to be. 3 months had passed since the fall of Hive General Vex. 3 months since they had fled from Sanctuary Prime. 3 months since the impossible had become possible. And now they were ready to say thank you. Ambassador stood on the great stage in the heart of New Hope City. It was a new city, built from the ashes of the old, and humans had worked together to create it, mixing their knowledge and their strength. The buildings were tall and beautiful, combining light technology with human solid construction. Around the stage, millions had gathered. Their lights glowed with every color imaginable, creating a sea of living rainbow. They had come from every corner of the planet to witness this moment. The moment they would honor their saviors. Captain walked onto the stage, followed by her team. She was healed now, though new scars marked her face and arms. Lieutenant walked beside her, his steps steady and calm. Sergeant came next, grinning at the crowd like they were all old friends. Corporal followed, her face serious but her eyes soft. Private brought up the rear, still watching everything, still ready for any threat. Behind them came the other human soldiers who had fought and bled for Sanctuary Prime. Some walked with help, their wounds still healing. Some carried empty spaces in their formations where friends had once stood, but all of them walked with pride. The crowd fell silent as stepped forward to speak. 3 months ago, he began, his voice carrying across the great square, we were dying. They had come to destroy us. We had no army, we had no weapons, we had no hope. His light flickered with remembered pain. We called out to the galaxy for help. Most turned away, most were too afraid, most believed we were already dead. He paused, looking at and her soldiers. But not everyone. On a small planet circling a yellow star in a corner of the galaxy most had forgotten, there was a species who heard our cry, and they answered. The crowd's lights began to pulse with emotion. They came from continued, a place of storms and fire and endless danger. They evolved not in peace but in war. Every day of their existence was a fight for survival, and they won. They won so completely that they reached out to the stars. He turned to face directly. When they arrived, I was afraid. I thought we had invited monsters to save us. I thought the cure might be worse than the disease. His light brightened with warmth. I was wrong. Stepped forward to meet him. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed deep emotion. Captain said, you and your soldiers came when no one else would. You bled for us. You died for us. You fought against impossible odds and you won. He bowed his head. On behalf of all, I thank you. We owe you everything. We owe you our lives, our future, our world. The crowd erupted in waves of light and sound. Colors danced and swirled as millions of expressed their gratitude in ways that words could never match. Waited for the celebration to calm before she spoke. Ambassador, she said, her voice steady but kind, we did not come here for thanks. We did not come here for glory. We came because it was right. She looked out at the crowd, seeing all those lives that her soldiers had fought to protect. On Earth we have a saying, the strong must protect the weak. It took us a long time to learn that lesson. We fought countless wars among ourselves. We caused terrible harm. We made mistakes that cost millions of lives. Her voice grew soft. But we learned. We learned that true strength is not about how much you can destroy. It is about how much you can protect. Stepped forward to stand beside her, behind him, and did the same. We are, continued. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. But that world also taught us something precious. It taught us that survival means nothing if you survive alone. It taught us that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy but protecting your friends. She extended her hand toward. The called out for help and we answered, but this is not the end. This is the beginning. Today we offer you more than just gratitude. We offer you partnership. We offer you friendship. We offer you a place among the stars walking beside us. Took her hand. His light glowed brighter than it had in months. We accept, he said simply. The crowd exploded with joy. Later that night, after the ceremony had ended and the celebrations had begun, Neva found Lieutenant standing alone on a balcony. He was looking up at the stars, his face thoughtful. Lieutenant, she said softly, joining him at the railing, what are you thinking about? Was quiet for a moment. I am thinking about home, he said finally, about Earth, about all the people there who will never know what we did here. Neva tilted her head. Does that bother you, that they will not know? No, smiled. That is not why we do this. We do not fight for glory or fame. We fight because it is right, because we can, because when someone calls for help, you answer. He pointed up at a distant star. Somewhere out there, he said, there is another species facing what you faced, another world being destroyed, another people crying out for help. He lowered his hand. And when they call, we will answer. That is what it means to be human. That is what it means to be a. Neva felt her light glow with warmth. I think I understand now, she said. You are not monsters at all. You never were. Laugh softly. Oh, we are monsters, Neva. Make no mistake about that. We can be the most terrible things in the universe when we need to be. His eyes grew serious. But we choose not to be. We choose to protect instead of destroy. We choose to heal instead of hurt. We choose to be the monsters that guard the door, not the monsters that break it down. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. And if anyone ever threatens thee again, they will learn exactly how monstrous we can be. Word of what happened on Sanctuary Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The story of thee and the humans who saved them was told on 1,000 worlds. Species who had lived in fear began to feel something new: hope. They were not just monsters to be feared. They were protectors, they were allies, they were friends. And somewhere in the darkness of space, on worlds facing their own destruction, desperate beings began to send signals toward that small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun. They had heard the stories, they knew the truth. When all hope was lost, when the universe itself seemed ready to consume them, there was one species who would answer their call. One species who would fight for them, bleed for them, die for them. They were listening, and they would always answer.